Hello, dear friends and lovers of peaceful nights. Welcome to my channel, Story for Sleep. Here, you'll find cozy and relaxing stories that will help you unwind from the day's hustle and drift into the world of dreams. If you enjoy my content, please subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new stories. Don't forget to like this video if you liked it and share it with friends who also need a good night's sleep. I'd love to know where you're watching from. Please write your city or country in the comments. And of course, feel free to share your thoughts and feelings about the story. Now, get comfortable, close your eyes, and let this story carry you away to a place of calm and peace. Sweet dreams. Imagine a place where the land ends and the endless ocean begins. A place where cliffs, worn down by wind and waves, drop sharply into the dark, restless depths below. Here, at the very edge of the world, stands an old lighthouse. It rises above the rocks like a stone guardian watching over the sea. Its white walls, covered with moss and salt, have witnessed hundreds of storms and thousands of sunrises. In its windows, like the eyes of a wise old man, you can see the fiery glow of sunset or the silvery light of the moon. Around the lighthouse stretches wild, rugged beauty. A rocky shore scattered with seashells and driftwood. Seagulls circling in the sky with sharp cries, soaring high then diving like stones, searching for prey. The wind rustles through the grass and whistles through cracks in the rocks, carrying the scent of salt and seaweed mixed with wildflowers growing on the cliffs. After rain, the air is thick with the smell of heather and wild daisies. During the day, bright sunlight plays on the waves and warms the stones. Reach out and touch a sun-warmed rock, it's rough and warm, almost alive. At night, silence and darkness take over. Only the faint light of stars breaks through the clouds and the lighthouse's beam cuts through the dark, guiding ships safely home. This lighthouse was built many years ago when the sea was even more dangerous and unpredictable. Back then, there were no radars or GPS, and sailors relied only on their knowledge, experience, and the light of the lighthouse. It is said that it was built with the money of a wealthy merchant named Johannes van der Velde. He was a very rich and influential man, but the loss of his son broke him. His son, a young sailor, disappeared at sea during a fierce storm. His ship was never found. Johannes vowed to build a lighthouse that would shine forever so no sailor would ever suffer the same fate. To build the lighthouse, they used sturdy granite quarried from mountains on the other side of the island. The stones were brought by barges and then lifted onto the cliff using a complex system of pulleys and winches. It was hard and dangerous work. The construction was overseen by an experienced engineer named Peter Jansen, who dedicated his life to the project. He personally supervised every stage to make sure the lighthouse was strong and reliable. Einar had spent his entire life at the lighthouse. From the moment he was a boy, the towering stone structure had been his home, his sanctuary, and his world. His earliest memories were filled with the salty scent of the sea and the steady rhythm of the waves crashing against the rocks below. His father was the lighthouse keeper before him, a stern but kind man who taught Einar everything he knew about the sea, the weather, and the delicate machinery that kept the beacon shining night after night. Together, they climbed the winding staircase, cleaned the great glass lenses, and maintained the ancient gears that turned the light. Einar remembered the long days spent learning to read the sky, how the color of the clouds could tell a story, how the wind's direction could warn of an approaching storm. His father's voice was patient and steady as he explained the signs of the sea, passing down knowledge that had been handed from generation to generation. Life at the lighthouse was simple but demanding. Each day began before dawn with the first light filtering through the small windows. Einar would prepare a strong cup of tea, the warmth seeping into his hands as he looked out over the endless ocean. The routine was comforting, checking the oil levels, winding the clockwork mechanism, polishing the lenses until they gleamed like jewels. But it wasn't all work. There were moments of quiet joy, watching the sun rise in a blaze of orange and pink, listening to the calls of distant seabirds, or feeling the cool breeze on his face as he stood on the rocky cliffs. The lighthouse was a place of solitude, but also of deep connection to the natural world. When Einar was a young man, he met Lena, a girl from the nearby fishing village. She was full of life and laughter, with eyes as bright as the sea on a clear day. They shared dreams of a future together. A small cottage by the shore, children playing in the sand, and a life filled with love and hope. Their time together was precious but brief. One stormy night, Lena went out to sea with the fishermen and never returned. The waves swallowed her boat, and the sea kept its secret. Einar was left with a heart heavy with loss, but also with a fierce determination to keep the lighthouse burning bright, to protect others from the same fate. Years passed, and Einar took over as the lighthouse keeper. He carried on his father's work with quiet dedication, knowing that every night the light he tended was a beacon of hope for sailors lost in the dark. His days were filled with the rhythms of the sea and the lighthouse, the creak of the stairs, the hum of the machinery, the distant crash of waves. He found comfort in the routine, in the knowledge that his work mattered. Sometimes, when the wind was just right, Einar would sit by the window and listen to the whispers of the ocean. He imagined the stories carried on the breeze, tales of adventure, of love and loss, of courage and survival. Though the lighthouse stood alone on the edge of the world, Einar never felt truly lonely. He was part of something greater, a timeless dance between man and nature, light and darkness, hope and despair. And so, night after night, he kept the light burning, a steadfast guardian watching over the restless sea. Over the years, Einar had become a collector of stories, each one a precious gem washed ashore by the tides of fate. Sailors, weathered and worn by their journeys, often sought refuge at the lighthouse during raging storms. They'd huddle around the crackling stove in the keeper's quarters, sharing tales that tasted of salt spray and distant lands. There was the unforgettable story of Captain Elias, a man whose face was a roadmap of wrinkles etched by sun and sea. He'd sailed the 7 seas, his voice a low rumble that seemed to echo the ocean's depths. He recounted a night when his ship, the Wanderer, was caught in a hurricane unlike any he'd ever seen. The waves rose like angry mountains, each one threatening to swallow them whole. The wind howled like a banshee, tearing at the sails and rigging. Just when all hope seemed lost, when the deck was awash and the crew was praying for a miracle, they spotted it, a faint, unwavering beam cutting through the darkness. It was the lighthouse, a beacon of hope in the swirling chaos. Captain Elias always swore that Einar's light and the steady hand that guided it had saved his life and the lives of his entire crew. He'd often send Einar gifts of exotic spices and strange trinkets from faraway ports, a small token of his immense gratitude. Then there was the chilling tale of the sea serpent of Black Rock. This wasn't just a story, it was a primal fear passed down through generations of sailors. They said a monstrous serpent with scales as dark as a moonless night and eyes that glowed with an unholy fire lurked in the inky depths near Black Rock. It would coil around unsuspecting ships, dragging them screaming to their doom. Old Man Hemlock, a fisherman with eyes as blue and cold as the Arctic, swore he'd seen it once, its massive form briefly illuminated by a flash of lightning. Einar never truly believed in such creatures, but he understood the power of fear, how it could grip a man's heart tighter than any kraken's tentacle. He also couldn't forget the haunting story of the ghost ship of the Misty Isles. This spectral vessel was said to appear only on the thickest, fog-choked nights, its sails tattered and torn like the wings of a wounded bird. Its crew, long since departed from this world, were said to still haunt its decks, their mournful cries carried on the wind. Some claimed it was a warning, a harbinger of impending disaster, a sign that the sea was about to claim more souls. Others whispered that it was a reminder of those lost at sea, forever searching for a safe harbor they would never find. The tale always sent a shiver down Einar's spine, a reminder of the fragility of life and the unforgiving nature of the sea. Einar himself held a special place in his heart for a story his father had shared, a legend whispered only among the most seasoned lighthouse keepers. It was the tale of the mermaid's tear, a shimmering pearl said to possess the power to calm the fiercest storms. According to the legend, a mermaid, heartbroken over the loss of her human lover, had wept a single tear. That tear, imbued with her sorrow and her love, transformed into a pearl of unimaginable beauty and power. It was said that if the pearl was cast into the sea during a storm, the waves would instantly subside and the wind would fall silent. Einar often gazed out at the turbulent waves, his eyes searching for any sign of that mythical pearl, wondering if there was indeed a way to soothe the ocean's restless heart, to bring peace to its eternal turmoil. But not all the stories were steeped in darkness and dread. Some shone with the light of hope and resilience. There was the heartwarming tale of the Lucky Star, a small, battered fishing boat that had been lost at sea for what felt like an eternity. Their rations were gone, their water was dwindling, and despair had begun to creep into their hearts. Just as they were about to surrender to the inevitable, a single, brilliant star pierced through the storm clouds, guiding them unerringly back to shore. The grateful sailors always maintained that the star was a gift from the sea itself, a celestial reminder that even in the blackest of nights, hope can still flicker and guide you home. Einar treasured these stories, understanding that they were far more than mere entertainment. They were a living connection to the past, a powerful reminder of the indomitable human spirit's capacity to endure unimaginable hardship, and a profound testament to the sea's dual nature, its ability to both challenge and inspire, to both destroy and sustain. And so, as he faithfully tended the lamp, ensuring its unwavering beam pierced the darkness, Einar carried these captivating stories with him, sharing them with the whispering wind and the crashing waves, ensuring that the legends of the sea lived on for generations yet to come. How does this expanded version feel? Does it provide a more immersive and time-filling experience? Would you like me to adjust anything or move on to the next section? The day had begun with a deceptive tranquility. The sea, usually a restless spirit, lay still and shimmering under the caress of the afternoon sun. But Einar, his senses honed by years of watching the ocean's moods, felt a prickle of unease. The air was heavy, charged with a strange energy. The gulls were unusually frantic, their cries sharp and anxious as they wheeled overhead. As the sun began its descent, painting the sky in hues of bruised purple and angry orange, the horizon began to darken. Clouds, thick and ominous, gathered like a malevolent army, their bellies swollen with rain and fury. Einar knew what was coming, a storm of epic proportions. He moved with a practiced urgency, his movements economical and precise. First, the lantern. He climbed the winding staircase, each step a familiar creak beneath his worn boots. In the lantern room, he meticulously checked the mechanism, his fingers tracing the smooth curves of the brass gears, ensuring everything was in perfect working order. He topped off the oil, the scent of kerosene filling the air, and polished the massive lenses until they gleamed like 1,000 captured stars. Tonight, the light wouldn't just be a guide, it would be a lifeline. Descending to the radio room, Einar felt the first fat drops of rain splattering against the thick glass of the windows. The wind was picking up, moaning through the cracks in the stone walls, a mournful prelude to the coming tempest. He reached for the receiver, his hand steady despite the knot of anxiety tightening in his chest. The airwaves crackled with static, a chaotic symphony of atmospheric disturbance. Then, a faint, garbled voice broke through the noise, a desperate plea from a fishing vessel, the Northern Star, caught in the storm's relentless grip, struggling desperately to maintain its course. "Mayday, mayday! This is the Northern Star. We are taking on water, requesting immediate assistance. Position." The voice was cut off by a deafening crash of thunder. Einar's heart clenched. He knew those waters. The jagged rocks and treacherous currents near the cliffs were a death trap, especially in a storm like this. The lighthouse was their only hope, a beacon in the overwhelming darkness. He raced back up to the lantern room, the wind now howling like a banshee, rattling the very foundations of the lighthouse. The waves had transformed into monstrous, churning walls of water, each one crashing against the shore with the force of a battering ram. Lightning split the sky, illuminating the scene in brief, terrifying flashes, revealing the full extent of the storm's fury. The air thrummed with raw power. Einar ignited the great lamp, and the powerful beam sliced through the darkness, a defiant finger of light pushing back against the encroaching chaos. He adjusted the angle, his movements precise and deliberate, focusing the beam on the area where he estimated the Northern Star to be. The light danced on the raging waves, a steady pulse of hope in the overwhelming darkness. Time became meaningless as Einar stood vigil, his eyes glued to the storm-tossed sea. The wind shrieked in his ears, the spray stung his face, but he remained steadfast, his gaze unwavering. He imagined the sailors on the Northern Star, clinging to life, battling the relentless waves, their faces etched with fear and exhaustion. He knew they were relying on him, on the light, to guide them to safety. Suddenly, through a momentary break in the torrential rain and towering waves, he saw it. A faint, flickering glow, the Northern Star's lantern. A fragile spark of defiance against the overwhelming darkness. A surge of adrenaline coursed through Einar's veins. They were still afloat. He grabbed the radio microphone, his voice calm and reassuring despite the turmoil raging within him. "Northern Star, this is the Lighthouse. We see you. Stay strong. Follow the light. We are guiding you to safety." Back and forth, he relayed instructions, coordinating with the coastal rescue teams, providing the sailors with the guidance they desperately needed. Every second felt like an eternity. On board the Northern Star, chaos reigned. The small vessel was tossed about like a toy in a bathtub. Waves crashed over the deck, soaking the crew to the bone. The wind tore at their clothes, and the rain lashed their faces, blinding them. Fear was a tangible presence, thick in the air. "We're going to die," one of the younger sailors cried out, his voice cracking with terror. The captain, a grizzled veteran named Lars, grabbed the young man by the shoulders, his eyes burning with fierce determination. "Not today. We're not giving up. We have a light to follow. We have a chance." With renewed resolve, the crew fought on, battling the monstrous waves, bailing water, and struggling to keep the ship afloat. They knew the odds were stacked against them, but they clung to the hope offered by the distant beam of the lighthouse. Slowly, agonizingly, the Northern Star began to respond to Einar's guidance. The ship turned, its bow pointing away from the deadly rocks towards the open sea. Each wave was a battle, each gust of wind a threat, but they persevered, driven by the unwavering light and the steady voice on the radio. As dawn finally broke, painting the sky in pale shades of gray and pink, the storm began to lose its fury. The wind subsided, the rain softened, and the waves gradually calmed. The Northern Star, battered and bruised but still afloat, limped towards the harbor, guided by the now gentle beam of the lighthouse. Einar, his body aching with exhaustion, his eyes burning from lack of sleep, watched as the ship finally reached the safety of the harbor. He saw the crew disembark, their faces etched with a mixture of relief, gratitude, and awe. He knew that tonight the lighthouse had not just been a building, it had been a sanctuary, a symbol of hope, a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit. In the quiet aftermath, as the sun climbed higher in the sky, painting the sea in shimmering gold, Einar reflected on the delicate balance between man and nature, the constant dance between life and death. The sea was both a giver and a taker, a source of sustenance and a force of destruction. And the lighthouse, his lighthouse, stood as a steadfast beacon of hope amidst its unpredictable moods, a promise that even in the darkest of nights, there is always a light to guide you home. He returned to his duties, his heart filled with a quiet sense of purpose, ready to keep the light burning for the next ship in need, knowing that as long as the lighthouse stood sentinel on the edge of the world, no sailor would have to face the darkness alone. With the storm past and the Northern Star safely in harbor, a sense of quiet settled over the lighthouse once more. The sun climbed higher in the sky, painting the sea in shimmering hues of gold and blue. Einar, his body weary but his spirit at peace, sat by the window, gazing out at the vast expanse of the ocean. He thought about the sailors he had helped guide to safety, their faces etched with gratitude and relief. He thought about the power of the light, a simple beam cutting through the darkness, offering hope and direction in the face of overwhelming chaos. What was it, he wondered, that drew him to this solitary life? Was it the solitude, the escape from the noise and distractions of the world? Or was it something deeper, a sense of purpose, a connection to something larger than himself? He realized it was both. The lighthouse was a place of refuge, a sanctuary where he could find peace and quiet. But it was also a place of responsibility, a place where he could make a difference in the lives of others. The sea, he knew, was a powerful force capable of both creation and destruction. It could bring life and sustenance, but it could also take it away in an instant. The lighthouse was a symbol of humanity's attempt to tame that power, to offer a measure of safety and control in the face of the unpredictable. But Einar also understood that the sea could never truly be tamed. It was a force of nature, wild and untamed, and it demanded respect. The lighthouse was not about conquering the sea, but about coexisting with it, about finding a way to live in harmony with its rhythms and its moods. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the water, Einar climbed back to the lantern room. He lit the great lamp once more, and the beam sliced through the gathering darkness, a steady pulse of hope in the night. He knew that tomorrow would bring new challenges, new storms, new sailors in need of guidance. But he also knew that as long as the lighthouse stood, he would be there, ready to answer the call, ready to keep the light burning bright. For in the end, Einar realized the lighthouse was more than just a building, more than just a light. It was a symbol of hope, a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit, and a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there is always a light to guide you home. If you're still awake, my dear listeners, allow me to whisk you away to a world of dreams where anything is possible. Tonight, I'll tell you a story about a special place, lost in time, but still holding a spark of magic. It's the story of the Forgotten Garden. Long, long ago, beyond 7 mountains and through dense forests, where the gentle sea meets the endless sky, lay a wondrous garden. It wasn't just any garden, but a true work of art created by the hands of fairies, elves, and nature spirits. They lovingly cared for every flower, every tree, filling the garden with life, light, and harmony. In the garden grew extraordinary plants, unlike any you'd find anywhere else in the world. Trees with silver leaves whispered wise tales on the wind, flowers with petals of pure gold shone in the sunlight, and fountains of crystal-clear water played melodic tunes. Magical creatures dwelled there. Fairies with transparent wings, elves with bows and arrows, gnomes guarding treasures, and wise owls who knew all the secrets of the world. But one day, when the world was still young, a terrible thing happened. An evil sorceress, envious of the garden's beauty and harmony, cast a curse upon it. She summoned a storm of unprecedented power which crashed down on the garden, sweeping away everything in its path. The fairies and elves were forced to flee their home to escape the sorceress's wrath. The garden was deserted, its paths overgrown, its fountains dried up, and its flowers withered. Centuries passed. The garden was forgotten, becoming a legend, a bedtime story for children. But even under the veil of oblivion, the garden retained its magic, quietly waiting for someone to lift the curse and restore it to life. And then, one day, in a quiet village nestled near the old mountains, lived a girl named Anna. She was an orphan living with her grandmother, who told her amazing stories about magical creatures and lost worlds. Anna was curious and kind, with an open heart and a belief in miracles. She loved to wander through the forests, collecting flowers and listening to the birds sing. One day, during one of her walks, Anna got lost. She wandered through the forest for a long time until she stumbled upon an old stone wall covered with ivy and moss. The wall was partially ruined, but still bore traces of its former grandeur. Curiosity took over, and Anna cautiously peeked over it. Before her lay the forgotten garden. It was wild and overgrown, but still beautiful. Tall trees with intertwined branches created shady paths, and flowers of every color of the rainbow grew everywhere, though faded with time. In the center of the garden stood an old fountain covered with moss and lichen, from which water had long ceased to flow. Anna felt her heart fill with love and compassion for this abandoned place. She knew she had to help the garden, to restore it to life and beauty. From that day on, she came to the garden every day. Description of Anna's work in the garden: sounds of a shovel, watering hose, birds chirping. She cleared the paths of weeds, watered the flowers, and pruned the dry branches of the trees. She talked to the plants, sang them songs, and shared her dreams and hopes with them. Anna didn't know how to break the curse, but she believed that her love and care would help the garden revive. And a miracle began to happen. The flowers began to bloom, filling the air with a sweet fragrance. The trees turned green, and the fountain began to gurgle with water once more. Birds returned to the garden, filling it with songs, and butterflies fluttered over the flowers like tiny living jewels. One night, as Anna was working in the garden under the light of the full moon, she heard a soft whisper. She looked around and saw small, glowing creatures floating in the air. They were the fairies who had once lived in this garden. The fairies thanked Anna for her care and love for the garden. They told her that the garden was a living thing, which felt and remembered. Thanks to her efforts, the garden was once again filled with life and magic. The fairies promised to always protect the garden and help Anna in her care. The fairies taught Anna ancient spells and showed her how to use magical herbs and flowers to break the curse. Together, they began to work to restore the garden to its former beauty and power. They watered the plants with magical water, collected dew from the petals of flowers, and scattered it throughout the garden, and sang songs that awakened the sleeping forces of nature. And gradually, step by step, the garden was transformed. The trees grew taller and stronger, the flowers became brighter and more fragrant, and the fountains became more melodious and joyful. Magical creatures returned to the garden: elves, gnomes, owls, and others. The garden was once again filled with life, light, and harmony. When the curse was lifted, the evil sorceress lost her power. She turned to dust and scattered in the wind. And Anna became the guardian of the forgotten garden, the one who brought it back to life and gave the world a place where one could find peace, inspiration, and hope. And if you ever find yourselves in those parts, my dear listeners, don't pass by the old stone wall covered with ivy. Peek over it, and perhaps you will see the forgotten garden, a place where fairies live, where flowers sing, where dreams come true. Remember that even in the darkest and most forgotten places, you can find light and beauty if you open your heart and give a little love. If you're still awake and ready to embark on an enchanting journey, make yourself comfortable and close your eyes. Tonight, I will tell you a story about a distant land, a magical lake, and a brave traveler who dreamed of seeing it with his own eyes. This is the story of the journey to the Starry Lake. In a faraway land called Eldoria, where mountain peaks pierce the sky and ancient forests stretch to the horizon, hiding countless secrets and wonders, there lies a special place spoken of in legends, the Starry Lake. Its waters are so clear and pure that they reflect the entire night sky like a vast mirror, sprinkled with billions of stars, galaxies, and nebulae. It seems as if you could reach out and touch distant worlds. They say this lake is magical, endowed with incredible power. Deep within its waters dwell ancient spirits of nature, guardians of the peace and harmony of this sacred place. They watch to ensure that no one disturbs the balance or defile the lake's purity. Those who have once gazed upon the Starry Lake never forget its otherworldly beauty and feel a peace that penetrates to the very soul. Our hero is a young and courageous traveler named Liam. He grew up in a humble village called Riverwood, nestled at the foot of the mountains, and from childhood dreamed of seeing the Starry Lake with his own eyes. He was told legends of how the lake grants the most cherished wishes if approached with a pure heart, sincere faith, and kind intentions. But the path to the lake is long and perilous, and not everyone is destined to reach its shores. One day, upon reaching adulthood, Liam decided to set out on a long and arduous journey. He packed a small but sturdy backpack with a map, compass, a flask of water, some dried meat and bread, a warm cloak, and his trusty dagger. His heart was full of hope, excitement, and anticipation of the miracle he sought. The journey to the Starry Lake proved to be far more challenging than Liam had imagined. He walked through dense, impenetrable forests where eternal twilight reigned, crossed raging, icy rivers risking being swept away by the current, and climbed steep, rocky slopes where every step was a tremendous effort. Along the way, he encountered various animals, wise owls whose piercing eyes seemed to read his thoughts, playful squirrels curiously watching him from high branches, and majestic deer gracefully leaping over fallen trees. Each seemed part of the magical world surrounding him, reminding him that he was on the right path. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in crimson and gold, Liam stopped at the base of a tall, sheer cliff. He felt deep fatigue, his legs ached from the long walk, and he desperately sought a sheltered place to rest. Suddenly, he noticed a small cave cleverly hidden behind thick bushes and hanging vines. Deciding to shelter there from the night's chill and possible dangers, he cautiously entered. The cave was surprisingly spacious and warm, as if someone had thoughtfully created a cozy refuge. Deep inside, Liam noticed a faint, shimmering glow beckoning him closer. Overcoming his fear, he approached and saw a crystal of extraordinary beauty emitting a soft, mesmerizing blue light. The crystal was perfectly smooth, as if polished by an invisible hand, shimmering with all shades of blue and violet. Liam felt a wave of calm, warmth, and serenity spread through him. It seemed the crystal was sharing its energy, filling him with strength and confidence. That night, Liam slept soundly and peacefully to the sound of dripping water and the gentle glow of the magical crystal. He dreamed of an old man with a long white beard, dressed in shining white robes, standing on the shore of the Starry Lake and smiling at him. The old man told him that the path to the lake was full of trials and hardships, but every step taken with faith and hope brought him closer to his cherished dream. He also warned Liam that on his journey he would encounter not only kind but also evil forces that would try to prevent him from reaching his goal. The old man advised Liam to be cautious, wise, and always follow the call of his heart. The next morning, Liam awoke with a renewed sense of determination and confidence. He thanked the crystal for its protection and support, packed his backpack, and left the cave, ready for new adventures and challenges. He knew the path to the starry lake would not be easy, but he was prepared to overcome all obstacles to see this magical place with his own eyes and fulfill his deepest wish. Liam continued his journey, venturing deeper into wild and unexplored lands. He walked through dense forests where trees intertwined their branches, forming impenetrable thickets, crossed mountain rivers with water so cold it numbed his feet, and climbed high cliffs where the wind was so strong it threatened to knock him down. He fought wild beasts, avoided dangerous swamps, and steered clear of bandits prowling for easy prey. But nothing could stop Liam on his quest. He believed in himself, in his strength, and in the fact that the starry lake awaited him. And with each passing day, as he drew closer to his goal, his heart filled with joy, hope, and love for the world around him. Greetings, dear listeners. If you haven't drifted off to sleep yet and are ready for another tale, then settle in and close your eyes. Tonight, I'll share a story from the edge of the world, a story of courage, love, and the choices that shape our destiny. This is the story of the lighthouse keeper's daughter. On the very edge of the world, where the vast Atlantic Ocean meets the rugged cliffs of Ireland, rises the solitary island of Skellig. This patch of land, swept by relentless winds and washed by icy waves, seems inhospitable to life. Yet here, at the highest point of the island, stands a lighthouse, its bright beam piercing the darkness, guiding ships through treacherous waters. For generations, the O'Malley family, hereditary keepers of the lighthouse, have kept their watch, maintaining the light of hope in this isolated place. They were strong, courageous, and dedicated to their duty. But this story isn't about the stern and taciturn Patrick O'Malley, the current lighthouse keeper, but about his only daughter, a young and dreamy girl named Aisling. Aisling was born and raised on Skellig. She had never seen big cities, green forests, or wide fields. Her world was limited to the horizon where the sky met the sea, the cries of gulls circling the cliffs, and the rhythmic rotation of the lighthouse lenses casting a bright beam into the darkness. She loved the solitude, the feeling of being connected to nature, and the sense that she was part of something larger than herself. Her father, Patrick O'Malley, was a man of few words and a stern demeanor, but he was fair and loving. He was a true seafarer, knowing all the ways of the ocean and able to predict the weather from the slightest signs. He taught Aisling everything he knew. How to read the tides, how to navigate by the stars, how to tie nautical knots, how to fish, and how to survive in the most extreme conditions. He also explained to her the importance of the lighthouse, how it was the last hope for sailors who had lost their way or been caught in a storm. But despite her love for the island and her respect for her father, Aisling yearned for something more. She was a curious and dreamy girl, eagerly devouring the books that rare visitors brought to the island, priests, scientists, and sailors. She read about distant lands, bustling cities, snow-capped mountains, mysterious deserts, and exotic cultures. She dreamed of seeing the world with her own eyes, meeting new people, learning about different customs, and experiencing adventures she had only read about in books. One day, late in the autumn, when storms in the Atlantic became particularly fierce and unpredictable, a merchant ship named the Sea Star, sailing from Lisbon to Liverpool, was wrecked off the coast of Skellig. The ship was caught in a severe storm, its masts were broken, its sails torn, and its hull was leaking. The captain and crew desperately fought for survival, but their supplies of food and water were running low and their hope of rescue dwindled with each passing hour. Aisling, watching the disaster from the lighthouse, felt a strong surge of compassion for the distressed sailors. She knew that if she didn't help them, they were doomed. But her father was adamantly against her leaving the lighthouse in such weather. He believed it was too dangerous and that she should stay on the island to maintain the light. "Our duty is to shine, not to save," he said. However, Aisling could not agree with her father. She understood that the lives of the sailors depended on her decision, and she could not stand idly by, following only the letter of the law. She believed that the true duty of a person was to help those in need, even if it meant risking their own life. That night, as the storm reached its peak, Aisling made a decision. Against her father's will, she secretly launched an old rowboat they used for fishing, filled it with food, water, warm blankets, and medicine, and ventured out into the raging sea. The journey was incredibly dangerous and difficult. The waves were huge, like mountains, and the wind fiercely lashed her face, as if trying to throw her into the water. The boat was constantly tossed from side to side, and Aisling had to exert tremendous effort to keep it afloat. Several times she came close to capsizing, but her determination, her belief that she was doing the right thing, and the prayers she whispered to herself gave her strength. After several hours of desperate struggle against the elements, Aisling finally reached the distressed ship. The sailors were exhausted and weakened, their faces pale and desperate. But when they saw her, a small figure in a boat fighting the storm, their eyes lit up with hope. They helped her climb aboard and gratefully accepted her help. Aisling spent several days on the ship, helping the sailors repair the damage, providing them with medical care, bandaging their wounds, and boosting their morale. She told them stories about her island, about the lighthouse, about her life, and about the books she had read. She sang them songs she had known since childhood and recited poems she remembered by heart. She tried to do everything possible to alleviate their suffering and instill in them hope for rescue. The sailors, in turn, shared their adventures and experiences with her. They told her about distant lands, about different cultures, about beautiful cities, and about the wonders of nature they had seen. They taught her new languages, new songs, and new dances. They opened up a world to her that she had long dreamed of. Among the sailors was a young Irish lad named Connor, who was a cabin boy on the ship. He was about Aisling's age, and they quickly became friends. They spent a lot of time together, talking about their dreams and hopes. Connor told Aisling about his family, about his hometown, and about his dream of becoming a ship's captain. Aisling told Connor about her love for the island, about her father, and about her dream of seeing the world. Between Aisling and Connor, a special bond formed based on mutual respect, understanding, and affection. They felt like they had known each other all their lives, even though they had only met a few days ago. They understood that their meeting was not accidental, but destined by fate. When the storm finally subsided, a rescue ship sent by the Irish Navy approached Skellig Michael. The sailors of the Sea Star were rescued and taken to safety. The captain of the ship, impressed by Aisling's courage, kindness, intelligence, and selflessness, offered her a place on his crew. He said she was a natural sailor and that she had all the qualities to become an excellent captain. He promised to show her the world, take her to distant lands she had only read about in books, and give her the opportunity to experience adventures she had always dreamed of. Connor also urged Aisling to accept the captain's offer. He said she deserved a better life than life on this isolated island, and that she should follow her heart and embark on her dream. He promised that they would travel the world together and that he would always be there for her, supporting her and helping her in everything. Aisling faced the most difficult choice of her life. She loved her home, her father, and the lighthouse, which had been a part of her life since birth. But she also loved Connor and yearned for adventure, new experiences, and the opportunity to realize her potential. She understood that if she stayed on the island, she would live a quiet and peaceful life, but she would never know what awaited her beyond the horizon. And if she left, she risked losing touch with her home, her past, and her father. What would she choose? Would she remain true to her duty and her family? Or would she follow her heart and embark on her dream, risking everything she held dear?